Hey everybody, Joe Peluso again from Complete Payroll, coming to you safely from my apartment in North Buffalo, New York. I'm very excited to have my buddy and our manager of auxiliary services on today, Greg Davy. Greg is a jack of all trades, but amongst other things, he is a genius when it comes to all things OSHA, which is the correct. I'm going to get this wrong. Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
Yeah, sure.
Ah, so close.
No, I think you got it. But
I did get it, I think. Anyways, OSHA. Greg's an OSHA genius. And the reason I have him on today is because OSHA just put out a document last week that sort of provides guidance for employers and companies that are going to be reopening soon. It's a long document. It's like 35 pages long, and it's not easy to read. And so I had Greg take a couple days with it and sort of break it down into some digestible pieces. And that's why I wanted to have him on today, was to sort of make sense of this kind of complicated document. So Greg, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to do that for us. We are talking on May 4th. And Greg is a big Star Wars fan. I look at his face. I love him. He doesn't like it's fine. Greg, from a JV Star Wars fan to like varsity Star Wars fan, I say may the 4th be with you.
Thanks, pal.
Awesome. All right, Greg, you took it. You read the OSHA thing, right?
Yep.
What? Just if you can, just maybe hit some of the high points and tell us, in as if you're talking to a 5-year-old, which you basically are in this situation. Lay it out and break it down for us.
You got it, pal.
Cool.
One of the things that it touches on repeatedly is to have a plan, a continuity plan. You should have one regardless. But one specifically for this pandemic, specifically revolving around the isolation and the containment. Any plan, though, needs to be flexible. This one included, because of just the constant changes that we're seeing, day after day. It's a constantly revolving pandemic here, and so some of those things to consider when making those plans are be as flexible as possible. It can't be something set in stone, but something that's known, educated on. Things to take into consideration for this specific situation are things like the amount of employee absenteeism that we're seeing for a number of reasons. Self-care, care of others, or just schools are closed. There's a lot of kids at home, a lot of parents staying at home as well.
Does it what does it say about that? Like, to be more lenient about things like that, or
absolutely,
absolutely,
yeah. Anybody that's sick, anybody showing any kind of symptoms should just be staying home at this point, and employers need to give a little extra in those particular situations.
Okay. What about how to treat that after, when a company reopens and welcomes people back?
Well, I mean, even when some of this stay-at-home stuff is lifted, and even states are kind of reopening schools or whatnot, which just heard that's not going to happen in New York State, but might not be the case in other places. But even when those things are relaxed a little, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be vigilant. Pay attention to those, to any symptoms. Wash your hands, hot water, soap, hand sanitizer when the hot water and soap isn't available. Mm-hmm. Um, cover your sneeze, cover your cough. Uh, don't touch your face. I mean, the things that your mom tells you constantly when you're.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how often I touch my face, and now I'm endlessly conscious of it, like everyone else is.
Oh well, and it doesn't help that there's a dozen people in your life that are constantly reminding you of that. Like,
Right.
don't touch your face. All right, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh yeah. Yeah. For sure. Um, okay. So yeah. All right. So that's all that falls under the heading of what, like infection prevention, stuff like that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And there's also a section specifically saying wash your hands, have hand washing stations available, have at least 60% alcohol hand sanitizer available.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, regular and thorough housekeeping. I can't
Okay.
say that enough. Regular and thorough housekeeping.
Yeah.
Housekeeping is paramount to safety, regardless of any pandemic or anything along
Yeah.
those lines. So
For sure.
regular and thorough.
I like that.
One of the items in that document was regarding what you use to clean your regular and thorough housekeeping, and they specifically call out EPA approved. I believe the terminology was protection from emerging viral pathogens, and
Okay. All right.
that's not any kind of guarantee. That's just saying yes, this stuff works right now.
What kind of stuff?
Cleansers and whatnot.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So it's mostly about like that type of stuff, like making, because yeah, I guess it's right. Like there's really not a ton. I mean, that's really the only thing you can do is just make sure that the whole place there's a very well communicated,
Absolutely.
set of regulations in place, like, whatever. Are they, so, what about, like personal, like PPE stuff, right? Is that, is it going to, does it mention anything about this, or do you think that like masks and gloves and stuff are going to be like a mandatory thing for a while, or what?
Well, for New York State, I think we're going to see until June 15th. I think until we get more news on whether things are lifted, or all the essentials are supposed to be wearing masks right now.
Right.
Employers should absolutely provide them if that's a possibility.
Is that an OSHA recommendation, or is that you?
No, that is something that's in there. Whenever possible, especially depending on your industry. Some industries are required to provide PPE, but this is sort of a special circumstance, and thus we must take special considerations.
Sure. Is there anything in there about like how to officially communicate this to employees? Like once you have a plan that you're satisfied with, that you like, and that meets whatever requirements, like, is there like, how do you have to communicate it to your employees?
Well, I say housekeeping is something that's paramount to workplace safety, but education is equally.
Sure.
You can have a perfect plan, but if it's not practiced, if it's not educated, then it's pointless.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So just as regular and thorough as your housekeeping, regular and thorough education, and every page on the OSHA website will tell you that. We'll say, tell your employees, establish a policy, preach the policy, practice the policy.
Okay. So you don't have to have, I would assume maybe like that's a handbook thing, right? Obviously, it would be wise to have employees sign off that they've been,
absolutely,
educated.
But that's not enough. You can never be complacent, ever vigilant.
Sure.
Complete Payroll has our internal team training where we cover workplace safety twice a year. We have a fire drill that is not necessarily team training, but then we have, a team training specifically focused on, where fire exits, where extinguishers are, all of that jazz.
Yeah, I feel like we're really good internally about being very thorough about educating and stuff like that. I don't know how it is at most other companies, but we're really, I feel like you're right. We're really, really good at that stuff. All right, there was something in here about exposure classifications. What's
that's pretty straightforward, and you're probably going to know what classification you're in. The very high are the people tending to the sick, the healthcare workers, hospital, emergency, personnel. They're obviously the ones in direct contact and have the highest chance of spreading and becoming infected.
Okay.
But then right below that are the people supporting them, the ambulance drivers, the supply and delivery people, and the hospital's IT guy. They don't. The doctor doesn't do it all themselves. So,
right.
Those people know who they are. They know they're in very high and high risk categories.
Sure.
Morticians and stuff along those lines. The same. Although, hopefully we don't have to worry about them too much. But.
Yeah. So what, what is that in the context of the document though? Or is it just sort of establishes those
things? It more or less tells you to take that into consideration when you're making your plans.
Okay.
When you're putting those plans into action.
That makes sense. Okay.
Like complete payroll, honestly, we're not in direct contact with customers, direct physical contact with customers all that often.
Right.
A good force, you and I are working remotely, very, very little risk of infection. And
yeah. All right. That's pretty much like the high level view of it, or is there anything else you'd like to?
Really, it's the plan is the key. Sit down, decide what to do, and then do it. But
and then make sure you enforce it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are you the one that's tasked with our plan?
No, not necessarily.
Who's gonna keep us safe, Greg? If not you, I was hoping it would be
the
you.
Officers are doing what they're required to do, and
fair enough.
And I'll chase after them if they don't.
Ha! All right, you're the check. I got it. I love it. All right. All right. Well, Greg, this is great. I really thank you so much for taking the time to go through the document, because I know it's not the easiest thing in the world to read. Thank you so much for familiarizing yourself with it, and then taking some time to talk to me and helping educate me, and hopefully other people that this is not their purview, or I guess is the word I'm thinking about.
I would still certainly recommend any employer that's reopening or pulling staff back to a centralized location kind of thing. Review that document. The last few pages are sort of the credits and whatnot. So, and there is a lot of redundancy, but there's good stuff in there. OSHA tries to be a little merciful on the legalese, but
well, it was too much for my brain, and I really appreciate you making it palatable, digestible. So, all right, and I'll make sure there's definitely going to be a link to the OSHA document wherever this video lives. So, thank you so much, Greg. You're the greatest. Live long and prosper. That's not Star Wars. Oh, man. All right, Greg, thank you so much. You're the greatest. I can't wait to sit next to you at the hole in the wall and eat a Caesar salad, because that's long overdue.
You go ahead and have your salad, Phil.
I will. All right, buddy. Take care.
Yeah.